I've had a couple of questions about dimensions, and I wanted to make it really clear, because this is probably the critical part of this actually, or the bit that I think probably matters most. I've said in the past, try not to get hung up on millimetres, and that is something that I'm sticking by, that's for sure. I'm trying to think of an analogy to tell you about dimensions. I don't know how long this is. I don't know. I got no idea. What I do know is it reaches from there to there. So I don't know if this is a philosophical perspective or not, but you can't tell me how long your shoelaces are, can you? But you can tell me that your shoes fit. You pull your laces until your shoes feel comfortable. I don't know how long that is, but I do know that's there, and I do know that's there, and I do know that that joins the two of them to keep this firm. This support that holds the axle, that secures the tight end of the Mitchell swing axle, is high enough, it's long enough for the axle to be horizontal, which it should be, and captured at one end, and the length of it is as long as the axle. Again, I couldn't tell you the length of the rear connector. So the important calculation or figure for this is what we've already talked about. So we have talked about this. There are lines on the floor. This wheel needs to be orientated, and orientated is more important than the figure. This needs to be orientated 17% forwards of the whole motorcycle wheelbase. And by not telling you figures and not getting hung up on the millimetre figure, it becomes adaptable to any motorcycle at all. So any motorcycle you want, just measure the wheelbase, divide by 100, times by 17, and that's how far forward your wheel should be from the back, in terms of where the back axle is. You saw on a previous episodes, so drop a plumb line or use a square to mark where that is on the floor, and then mark that 17% forward of where that axle is. So, well, we've done that anyway. Just revisit that episode is already been covered. So the only bits that are important is this wheel's orientation to these two wheels. There are lots of old pictures available on the internet, and some of them are on my Facebook, of the degrees that this should be toe in. It's been discussed. It should be, I think it's about 5 degrees, something like that. But again, it doesn't matter, because this axle, the angle of this axle and the toe in of this Mitchell axle is adjustable. Slide it forwards on the slipper spring to increase the toe in, and slide it backwards to decrease the toe in. That's been covered. So I hope that makes sense. Don't know the length of that, don't know the length of that, don't know the length of that, and it doesn't matter. As long as it joins my cradle to my motorcycle in the correct orientation, firmly, then it's the right length. And whatever figure that is, just doesn't matter. Just doesn't matter at all. Orientation of that wheel to those two wheels is the only, not figure, because it's not a figure. It's just the orientation of this wheel to those two wheels is the important bit, not the number, not the number. Now I've done a bit of work since the last video, because I was advised to have a bit more to show. I haven't finished it, so don't worry, I haven't just popped in and I haven't just finished it and gone, oh there you go, it's done. So sorry, but you missed it. That's not the case. I'm going to go over now and show you some of the work that I've done, and then I'll do a bit more, and hopefully it'll become clear. So right, I'm going to come and grab the camera now because we're not going super techie. I'm going with the one camera and I'm going to show you. Oh, I've got some more subscribers. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. I've got a fly in the room. Can you hear it buzzing? Why? Flies must be obsessed with motorcycles, particularly two-strokes. I think that's why they make the two-stroke sound. Right, so let's grab the camera. I'll show you around what I've done, and I'll show you what I'm going to do next. And I probably won't even bother editing this out. Come on, come on. Okay, right. Let's tap the back screen so I can see what you see. So, we've looked at this back connector. Okay, so that's back of the, so there's a little tab there coming off of the top swing arm pivot that connects the upper rear of the cradle to the bike. We've got the middle bar that connects the lower bar of the cradle to the bike. And this was a bit of a toughie. I had some trouble with this, and the reason being that you have to make sure that your foot area is clear. So hang on, let me put my feet in. There we go. Ooh, I'm just passing the camera on to my left. Okay, can you see my foot? Yes, you can. So I've got access there to the gear pedal without touching there, or touching there. So this area is completely free. And in order to keep that area free, we had to put this connector just here. Now these two studs here come through holes that are already in the bike. I haven't drilled any more holes. These studs are just M6 bolts that come through from the inside of the side. So what I've done was, perhaps I will take this off for you at some point. So inside there you've got your battery. So you take that off, you've got your electrics and your battery. So I dropped that off, pulled the battery out, and then you can see those two holes. I pushed bolts through them and bolted this on. Sorry, pushed the two bolts through and bolted a plate on, that plate there, and then I put that bar between the two. And again, like I say, it doesn't matter about the length of it because the cradle was orientated as to allow the wheel to be in the correct place, and this just joined that with that, that with that, without getting in the way of that. I felt that the front was a little bit loose, and I put the upper to just there. And again, bolting on. Most important that it bolts on, because it needs to be classed as an accessory, not as a modification. Now, you'll see another spare. Where is it? Oh, I'm just trying to look. So there is a spare connection. That connection there is sharing the bolts of the footrest. So it's got two bolts. Let me see if I can get right underneath. Maybe you can see the holes. I don't know. I hope so. Okay. So that's bolted through there. So the job that I'm going to do next is I'm going to connect this bar here with the cradle. Probably just there. So let me just grab a bit of scrap. Quite simply, there to there. So I should just adjust that. You see that wants a bit of a file, but we need the foot area clear, which it is, and that will fasten the bottom of the cradle to the bike. Okay. What's going to need doing then is, because you can see I didn't fully weld that, there's just a couple of tacks on there and there's nothing underneath that one either. So once I've tacked this on in the correct orientation, the whole thing will come off, and I'll turn it over and I'll weld everything on. That bit's the axle, that axle holder there will get welded on there. When it's turned upside down. But I'm probably going a bit. I wouldn't say I've tacked it. It's been tacked in a couple of places where I can get to it. It's been welded fully. You know, that there's been welded fully, but underneath it hasn't been. But it is, at least I know now. When I unbolt it and turn it over to finish all the welding, I know that it's not going to move, and I know that it will bolt back onto the bike without too much wrestling. Okay. Right, I hope that makes sense. I'm going to turn it off now and start doing a little bit of measuring, and I'll keep you informed on the progress. That right angled connector that's going to go underneath, I just showed you, that one there, I've decided I'm going to curve it just to increase ground clearance, just make it look a little bit tidier. I think that sticking out at the bottom is not going to be very good, so I'm going to bring it up so that it's more like that. It gives a bit more ground clearance. Not going to be super tight, but that's what I'm going to do. And I'm going to do that using the same methods that I used to bend the miters on these corners. And that is, I'm going to cut a fillet out of the middle, as is in line with what I was taught. I think it's called a coffin cut in carpentry terms. So that's what I'm going to do on this metal. So I'm just going to show you, just because I don't know if I've made it explicit or not. So there was my first coffin cut. The angle was guessed, okay? Just guessed. And this is what I've just marked up for the second coffin cut. So what I've done is I've left enough clearance there so that it's not touching the footrest, because I don't want it to lift the footrest up. The footrest doesn't need to go down at all. It's already on its stop, so to speak. So I've cut this at a, well, not cut this, but I've marked the angle. So what I do is I marked the middle line, and then I just got up without using my hands. Oh yeah. So then I put it in the vise and I marked that line. And the other side, there we go, looking over. And then I guessed that angle, whatever I wanted it to be, and set my sliding bevel. So there's the angle. And then you can do it there. That wants to go across at 90 degrees, so that's marked with a set square. And then on the other side, you use your sliding bevel again, mark those two angles on. Now I'm going to cut it. I'm not going to leave the camera on while I cut it because it's boring. I'm going to cut that chunk out, and then we'll take it back over to the bike and I'll show you what I mean about guessing that angle. It doesn't matter what it is, as long as it joins about there with there. Doesn't matter length, doesn't matter angles. Its purpose is to join there to there. However we get there, doesn't matter. So just cut the coffin. I've just cut the coffin cut. So this chunk here is coming out. And then we swap hands. This is going to bend up. How far? Don't know. I'm getting very good with working one-handed. Okay. Can you see that we have successfully missed the footrest? It's close, but I wanted it close. We successfully missed that footrest. So now all I basically need to do is to join these two up nice and neatly. I think I might even put another angle in. I think I might put another coffin cut in so that we can meet closer to the bike. So I could do that by taking a bigger coffin cut out of there, but I don't think I can because I don't want it to touch the footrest. So I'm going to do another fairly shallow coffin cut in the middle of this long bit in order to get that to meet nearer the bike and just have less sticking out, because Debbie might want to use this off-road. It might even be in long grass and all that kind of stuff. So the less that we've got dragging, the better. Now I can't show you me marking it up because it would take a hand, and I'm currently using all my hands. I dare say that if you've managed to last this long of my meanderings and chunterings regarding the philosophical state of building this sort of thing, and probably approaching all these sorts of projects, they just link into something that I heard on an Alan Watts lecture this morning. Alan Watts is a 1960s English philosopher who was in America at the time, but he was talking this morning, and it reminded me that it's okay to make mistakes. I know that I've said this before, but that's probably me paraphrasing Alan Watts's words anyway. As a child, your pictures were probably rubbish, but they still went on the fridge, and you couldn't have become a better artist until you'd done those rubbish pictures. Obviously, you don't want to start. Your first project does not want to be a $10,000 Z900. So start on something relatively disposable. The metal for this is really cheap. The actual metal is a fraction of the price. It's just, I think the metal was about $80. Oh, it's 6 meters, by the way. Altogether, it's exactly 6 meters that I've used to make this. And it, like I say, maybe $80, something like that. Don't quote me on it, but it's not expensive. So really, you can get it wrong. Just have another go. And even if you waste 6 meters, you've wasted $80 unless you consider it a learning experience. If you've learned something from it, then it's one of the best value lessons that you're ever going to get. $80 to learn how to become a fabricator, not bad. So give it a go. Don't worry about wasting material. Give it your best shot and evaluate your results. If they're not quite right, just give it another go. You will be getting nearer the bull most times if you stop and have a look. This is far from perfect. It's adequate. I actually think it's a bit better than adequate. I'm happy with it. Even the mistakes that I've made are, I think, within the realms of acceptable. So don't be scared. Get stuck in there. And even if your first one's rubbish and it snaps off, you're still better at it than you were. Thanks for listening to my philosophy. I know it's not overly relevant to building a sidecar. It's actually relevant to building everything. All right, thanks. I'll crack on. Now, I've just done the last coffin cut, so I hope you can see that takes it out the way. where it would have been. That's where it would have been, and that's where it is now if I hadn't bothered to do these coffin cuts. So you can just open them out to what you need. These were all guessed angles, and there's opportunity, there's room to move with welding, because you know it's a filling that it fills the join while it's there. So I've just clamped the new piece on. I'm going to tack these joins, and then I'm going to cut this piece here off just there and well tack it on, and then remove the whole thing off the bike, and we should be in business. I hope that makes sense what I've done. I'll just show you. I'll move the camera around so hopefully you can see, just in case that hasn't fully illustrated it. Now I've just put the that support in the vise and joined up those tack welds, and while that's cooling I just tacked the swing axle retainer on. This is the important bit, and you'll feel, if you do make one of these, you'll feel instantly, I haven't stood on this yet, but this is the one. As soon as that axle is properly restrained and contained with that rod end, that's when this really can be seen to work properly. That's the it's the final piece of the jigsaw puzzle, fastening that, retaining that, restraining that end of the axle. I knew I'd get there eventually. It's a matter of I say things 3 times. So yeah, when that's cooled, I shall put it against this, mark this up with where I can cut it off, tack it on, and then we will be ready to remove the whole sidecar once it's all been tacked up. Complete all the welds, the underneath of them, particularly where I couldn't get with my welder, and that'll be it for the construction. Then I've got brackets and things to put on for the mudguard or fender, depending on what part of the world you're in. And then I think probably before the lights, I might even take it round the block. Though I am struggling to, I probably will. One of the things I've got to do is I've got to put the air filter back on before I can ride it, because it just doesn't work very well without it. The carrier is essentially a snorkel, and your air filter goes into that little hole there, and this part here is then the snorkel, and it restricts the flow of the air going into the carburettor suitably to balance the fuel and air mixture. So yeah, if you just take the air filter off, no surprise it's not going to run properly, because it's not, the carburettor is not jetted for that much air, whereas it is jetted for the amount of air that gets through with the airbox on. Okay, I've tacked that on. Welding is a bit of a mess, but I've already said that your flat wheel, your soft pad on your angle grinder is your friend, as long as you've got the weld penetration. As long as it's gone into the metal. If it's sitting on top of the metal, that's no use, because as soon as you hit it with the grinder, you're just removing the weld that you put on. It's unwelded, and will be ready to fall apart. So although this weld is a bit of a mess, I can assure you that the steel was glowing red, and in a couple of instances even burning through. There is good penetration on this weld, these welds. So even though they don't look that pretty, there's not only plenty of weld there, but also good penetration. It's not just going to crack off the top. And that comes from having prepared the metal back to bare steel. I got rid of all the paint, and there's obviously no rust, it's new metal. But we are fastened on. That is it. That is the go. It's not fully welded, because obviously I've got to take it off and weld underneath, as I've previously mentioned. But we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 good solid points of attachment on this now. You can see the axle moving plenty there. We will be restricting the rate of that movement with a adjustable shock absorber, and I think it's going to be okay. So I'm going to unbolt this. That will be the next job after my lunch, because I'm hungry. Okay, I've undone all the bolts, holding the sidecar on. I put both side stands on because it's going to fall. Oh, that was close. I thought I was going to go further then. Woo! Could have been worse. Could have not put the side stand on at all. Oh, there you go. Easily detachable. Make sure you've got a mate there to catch it. You put it off. Take the wheel off. Turn it upside down. Oh, I'm trying to look at the viewfinder there. See that I'm in the shot. There we go. That's better. So yeah, unbolt it, turn it over, and fasten up all your tacks where they weren't previously fastened. Again, I'm going to turn the camera off for this, but you just can't weld them upside down anyway. So just tack them loosely. Well, tack them so they don't move, and then turn it over and weld them up. So that's what I'm going to do now. So I've welded everything. When you've got better access to be able to weld, the welds are always better. I mean, I'm sure that there will have been a lot of you, me included, going, oh no, that's never good enough. Lots of them weren't. But the good thing about welding is you can keep going. You can put some more on top. If it looks a little bit not strong enough, well, keep going, put some more on. Strength's the name of the game here. We don't really need to worry too much about the looks. I am going to tidy this up anyway with the soft pad. When it's all painted the same colour, it's going to look a heck of a lot better, and it's going to be right underneath the thing anyway. And like I say, turning it over so that you've got, always be careful when you're moving anything that you've welded. It just stays so hot for so long. So yeah, I've taken the opportunity to go all round it and check that all seams and all areas are fully welded, and they, yeah, like I say, they still bulge out a bit in all the corners. Have I missed a bit in the corner there? Yeah, I'll put a bit more in there. Next time you see this, it's going to be flat wheeled and fastened back on the bike, and it will be ready for a test drive. Just put a little bracket on the inside, sorry, not the inside, the outside of the chassis to hold this mudguard on, which is a standard NBC 110 mudguard. Now you can see that it's got little divots in there. I will knock them out. We're fully welded. Went round the block on it yesterday. I am going to put the shopping crate in. Okay, the shopping crate is the one that doesn't have the back cut out, and the reason that I'm going to do that is because I'm going to put a two-person swag, which I like as a weight. I won't say counterweight. I like it as a weight because it is exactly the sort of thing that it's the sort of weight that this was designed for. It's a big swag. You might have seen it on my Facebook page. It's bigger than you could really expect. It's glamping, to say the least. But it would be quite reasonable to expect someone to make one of these and then fill it up with camping gear and they'll go camping on it. So that's why I've done that. I've also done that because it makes turning the corners a little easier when you're getting used to it, to have a little bit of weight in there. And I've also done that because it stops anything vibrating. Sometimes you can get a buzzing noise just from something sort of, well, just vibrating from engine vibrations and wind vibrations, and it's difficult to work out what they are sometimes. But nevertheless, I should be taking this down for coffee later on today to the harbour side. The bike's registered. This is an accessory. I should possibly have indicators over there. Well, not possibly, I should definitely have. Well, actually I don't know definitely, because I've seen other motorcycles with sidecars riding with indicators just there, but I will be putting my indicator just there for sure, because that strikes me as the right thing to do. If I'm doing a test ride today, I will risk it, and it'll be my next job to do. I just want to sort of see how it goes in terms of handling. I don't have the shock absorber on yet. That's going to take a little bit of doing. With my other sidecar, it was fairly easy because I've got a big gap between the sidecar and the mudguard to put the steering damper, and here I haven't. It's tight up against it. I'll be able to work out something, but it's going to be in here, or we might need to take the box out to adjust the damping. I've actually found that the damping pretty much wants staying on stiff most of the time anyway, so I don't think that's a huge problem. Right, next time you'll see me, I'll be enjoying a coffee. I'm just about to put the side light on. There it is, into these holes here. And I'm just looking for a bolt that's going to go into this and not crush it. So it's going to be a stepped bolt that I can tighten up without crushing the rubber. And I just want to go over something that I've thought about quite a lot when I've been walking the dog and all that sort of stuff, and not filming. And this is again, it's a sort of semi-philosophical sort of thing, and it relates to the scrap bin. And it's not a metaphor, literally my scrap bin. So this sidecar body here is my old scrap bin. I noticed from making regular deposits into my scrap bin that it was tough. I realised that it was a good, strong plastic scrap bin. So when it came to looking for a body, to a strong enough body and light enough, because this is not, just isn't heavy. I'm holding it out at, you can't see, never mind. I'm holding it out at arm's length. It's not heavy. And it's ideal, and it's cheap. I think these are $27 from Stratco Homemaker or something like that. So when I decided to make a body and spoke with Debbie about what she wanted, and she got the two needs for the sidecar, one to carry the dog and one to carry some shopping, the scrap bin struck me as ideal. And the scrap bin has been the source of so many components. There's a bit of steel there that holds the side on. That bit of steel there that holds the Mitchell swing axle on. That's from an engine stand. You know, one of those engine cradles. So many of my bits and bobs have come out of this scrap bin. You can see I haven't always put everything away, but I'm going to show you anyway. It is important, if you are not just thinking of building a sidecar, but thinking of building projects like this. So I think this is going to be the last one. So there it is. There's my scrap bin, and there's various bits of metal in it, and when I need something, I go in here and, well, there you go, there's a bit of that, and there's some of that, and that can go in there, and that can. Now, the reason that I've got a scrap bin, and I've got a fantastic resource of all sorts of different bits of metal, is because when I take something apart, or when I've got something spare, it goes in. So earlier on I talked about depositing something in the scrap bin. I very much think of it as a bank. That scrap bin is permanently full of really useful bits of metal because I fill it. Here is my tub, marked up, grommets and spacers. Inside, you'll find grommets and spacers. No idea where that came from. It looks like it holds a side cover on. That's used for driving in the seal. Oh, I mustn't forget to do that. I've got some dust steels to go in that wheel. So that's my grommets and spacers out of my old hummus tub. Pipe clamps, washers, all sorts of things are kept. Now, if you don't keep things that are useful and put them in your scrap bin, you're going to have to go to Bunnings or B&Q or Harbour Freight or wherever it is for every single component. Things are going to start getting pretty expensive, and that's if you can find what it is that you need. If you just look after some of your scrap, I don't mean hoarding, but put some of it there, at least the stuff that you think might be useful. I'm not talking about scrap. Well, I've got more boxes of it down there, and I've got a mental note of what I've got. I'm not, like I say, it's relatively organised, and I've got a relatively good idea of what I've got. So anyway, that was my point. I'm just going to go and see what spacers and washers and things I've got that I can use to fasten this on properly. And yet again, I'm turning to my scrap bin. Maybe there should be another word for it and not a scrap bin. Maybe it could be my saviour bin or something like that. But anyway, get yourself a big, strong plastic bin. I can really recommend the Stratco ones if you're in Australia. And start putting into it every useful bit of metal that you think, oh, I might have a use for that at some point or other. Because when you do, that was part of a dog guard in the back of a Holden Commodore to stop the dog from jumping from the back seat into the front seat. And there was a lot of straps of metal, and I've used that time and time again, cut bits off of it, got some stuff there. Look, I have got a proper metal store. You know, there's some, oh there we go, we can see some tubes down there. But it still doesn't take the place of a good scrap bin, a well-stocked scrap bin. I hope you haven't found this patronising. I hope you found this advice useful. I think I want to pass it to you because I had to work it out myself, and no sob story, but everything that I've learned here, I've learned on my own, self-taught, and I'm trying to save you, I'm trying to give you my shortcuts basically. That's what I'm trying to give you, my shortcuts, so that you can be where I am now, a little younger, so that you can make some more advances. Okay, right, well, on with the sidecar.
Get my 2-year-old granddaughter a warm coat for the winter.
Case in point, this soon to be indicator bracket that's going to go here used to hold the wheel in one direction on a hospital bed, which I turned into a motorbike lift. So even though I didn't need wheels on my motorbike lift, I didn't think that it would be stable enough to be just sat on wheels. So I took the wheels off, and I took the wheel mechanism off, threw that in my bin, and now I'm using it. And that is approximately 3 years later. Still being used there. Got a couple of little brackets on now for me indicator. Rear lights on, front indicator, similar sort of bracket. Like I say, I think it came from a hospital bed. They've got a nice front light there. It's not a brand new one, but I'm expecting it to be fairly bright. I've still got to wire them up. We need I think a reflector on the left side there, an amber reflector on the left hand side of it, and I think that is it done and road legal. And I won't be needing to tell the government anything because I've got a trade plate, which means that I'm allowed to ride unregistered vehicles. This is registered, but it's registered as a bike. Because I'm allowed to ride after test and repair or build. I should just put my trade plates on the back of this, and then I will be completely legal. I'm looking forward to that. I'll keep you posted.